The opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the participants and do not reflect the opinions or beliefs of Marshall University Libraries, the Department of English, the College of Liberal Arts, Marshall University Film Studies, or HerdCon. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Giant Bombs, exploring cinema through famous box office flops. This episode, we will be focusing on the film Cool World from 1992. Give a little bit of a summary of this. This was directed by Ralph Bakshi. When Jack Deebs was behind bars, he found escape by creating Cool World, a cartoon series featuring a vixen named Hollywood. However, the flesh proves weaker than ink as Holly takes human form in Las Vegas. That is the IMDb descriptor. This was a film that cost, rough estimates, 28 to 30 billion. I'm sorry, not billion. I'm getting out of. I don't know what it'd be. 28 to 30 million dollars at the time, and took in a mere 14 million dollars. So it was a proper bomb, and certainly one for us to talk about. And we wanted to. We always love to have guests on the show to talk about films, and we have a colleague of ours in the English department, Professor Jillian Hovatter.
Hovatter.
I'm sorry,
it's
Hovatter.
Okay.
Jillian teaches composition. She teaches film classes, and she teaches the Intro to Comics class. So this is a film that involves comics, kind of mixed comics, animation, film. So you're probably a pretty good one. So I was kind of interested. We're always looking to look at different kinds of film bombs, and maybe, what did you talk about a little bit, your interest and memories of this film, since you're our fellow colleague and your husband talked about how you were a big fan of 90s films. So
I am a big fan of 90s films. This isn't one of the ones that I necessarily would call good.
Yes.
But it is memorable to me because when I was 13 years old, this is the movie I went on my first date ever to. Yeah, it was the summer between 7th and 8th grade. I lived in university housing, so me and some of the kids from the neighborhood decided to all go to this movie. And of course, the guy that I was dating was going along too. So it was kind of like a group date situation. It was interesting. It was an interesting movie to be watching as a, barely pubescent girl, and all of the things that go on that with this heavy sexual tone to this film. So, needless to say, I got up and left at one point because I was just so, I don't know, flustered and embarrassed in a way, just because, it's teens for you, early teens.
Do you remember at all the choice of picking this movie to go to?
I loved Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yeah.
So there was like that sort of human, live action animation hybrid. So I was like, this will probably be good. And the way that the trailer presented itself, it seemed like it would be a cool movie. It had a sweet soundtrack. And it was the movie that was coming out that weekend. So it was like the blockbuster that, not really a blockbuster after all, but it was, it was hyped up. So, and it was hyped towards people my age because it had that PG-13. So it was like, ooh, I'm 13. I can go see a PG-13 film.
I do think we think about and talk about a lot of what drives groups of people to the box office. But I think an overlooked thing is why an individual goes to the box office is because it's the weekend I'm going to the movies, and this is the movie that's out. How many movies I've seen exactly that way?
Yeah, that a lot of times that is exactly why I would go to the movies back in the 80s and 90s. Now it's a little more, I'm a little more choosy when I go to films because I don't have that same, free time that I had in my youth. But I'm also, I have a little more refined taste, I like to think. Not to say there aren't things to appreciate about this film here and there. But generally, I don't just go because it's just something to see. I like to be a little more choosy these days.
Yeah, I was trying to remember my 1990s impressions of this movie. I had not thought about it and when you said it, I was like, oh, right, that's a movie that exists. And I'm confident I never saw it. I think I ever watched it. But I did have a strong impression of, like, a visual impression of it. So much so that I was like, it must have been like a poster in a video rental store I went to all the time, or like I held the box in my hands a lot, where I was like, because I had that, just like the poster image, like really strongly. I was like, I must have stared at this and stared at this and stared at this. And I remember also the strongest impression being of the movie, like you said, of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, as in my mind as a child, thinking, okay, well, there's movies, and some movies are about sports, and some movies are about submarines, and some movies are just about a human man and a sexy cartoon woman, and it's just going to be a type of movie I see over and over and over again for the rest of my life. And I didn't, and really, until you brought this movie up again, I was like, oh yeah, it was just a few years after Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Is the exact style concept. I could see this movie as being easy to pitch after Who Framed Roger Rabbit, like the success of that movie.
Absolutely.
And then that was not a style that took off forever and ever. It's really only those two
It's
movies.
very
Yeah, and
unique.
then there was also like a few music videos that kind of mixed the live action and animation around that time period as well.
I remember the trailer for it was particularly good, and they had I think it's the Peter Gunn theme, which I don't think shows up and it just was a very like dun 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 dun, and then he's like reaching for there's Gabriel Byrne. I believe I had seen Miller's Crossing. I was like, he's great in that film, and I was like, oh, he's in this film, and there's Kim Basinger, and there's this young guy named Brad Pitt, who I think I remember seeing in Thelma and Louise, and I was like. And I was a really big. I was very interested. I was a fan. I think I was probably a fan of the Ralph Bakshis by that point. But it was one of these things like I wanted to see it, and then I was really into Siskel and Ebert, and they're like, "This is trash. This is trash." I was like, "I'm gonna trust Siskel and Ebert and not watch this film and be disappointed." And this is the first time I watched it was for this. So. Yeah, I have lots of
Yeah,
thoughts.
this is the first time I've ever sat down through it. Though I do remember when it was coming out, not being able to get over the fact that it was called Cool World. Like I just remember laughing at like, why didn't it should be called Awesome Movie? Like why is it called Cool World? It sounded sounded so dumb to me when I was young.
It is absurd. Yes.
I had not. I was suddenly thinking like in the '90s, how many movies had the word "cool" in it? And I should have went. I didn't do my research about this, but I remember there was Cool Runnings about
Yeah.
the Jamaican Bob. There was a low budget erotic thriller with Terry Hatcher and the guy who played the T-1000, Robert Patrick, called The Cool Surface.
Oh.
Family owned a video store, and we had we would put in a lot. We would get low budget erotic thrillers at the time. That was one of them. But I was like, there must be like a lot, because the '90s were probably the last cool decade, or things were a little simpler then, really, compared to now. But I swear, there's probably like a lot of films that I can't think of that have the word "cool" in the '90s of some sort. So.
I want to say there was even another movie that he directed that was like a straight to video movie that also had "cool" in the title.
Oh,
it had
yeah.
like Alicia Silverstone and Jared Leto.
Yeah, the crazy and the cool.
Yes, yeah.
Which was like a Showtime movie. He said, I remember, I never saw that one, but he was like, they gave me like $1 million, and I had the best time because nobody bothered me. Because Ralph Bakshi is very much a please don't bother me while I make my thing. This just always seemed like this was destined not to work, to give this guy a big budget and to undergo studio interference. He's a very kind of underground cult,
Yeah, absolutely.
independent minded, like kind of artist.
Coming from an independent background, like he had so much control, even in his earlier days. Where was it at? The name of the studio is escaping me.
Terry Tunes.
Yes, Terry Tunes. Even then, he had more power than he did have, than he had over what was going on with Cool World. So I think that lack of power, just and even while having the bigger budget and everything else, it just wasn't worth it to him.
Yeah.
So
I also like thinking about Bakshki's career, which I had not ever like critically sat down and like studied. And in my mind, it's just like, oh, he makes these big epic animations, and then those were mostly in the late '70s, early '80s, I think, through that time period. And then I didn't realize like Cool World was like such a disaster. I don't think he made another film I think he made one like decades later.
He did a lot of short films.
Yeah.
He's done some short films since then, but I think pretty much Cool World more or less put him into retirement, semi-retirement. And I mean, he had those kind of earlier. He had in the later '70s. He did Wizards. He did the 1.5% of the Lord of the Rings in his Lord of the Rings adaptation. So he shifted, and then Fire and Ice in 1983. But he'd done a lot of these kind of, for lack of a better word, urban, kind of very adult animation with things like Fritz the Cat, Heavy Traffic, and then one of his most notorious films, Coonskin, that he made in 1974. Which I think definitely some of the animation style in those early films pops up because he did a lot of rotoscoping in some of his later films. If you don't know what rotoscoping is, it just they use a camera and they film somebody and then they just trace over that. And every animation studio's done something like that. Disney, and they do that, but it was very, very direct because this was a guy who was putting out animated films at a very full-length animated films at a very fast clip. So a lot of times they're mixed mediums. There's black and white footage, color footage, live action mixed in with the animation. So there are things where they're clear like corners being cut, but that's also part of the aesthetic.
I believe also when it came to the animation in this film, he kind of like that was the only part he was having fun with.
Yeah.
Because he had all of that, like they were having so much control over everything else. And so he just kind of like went wild and just had fun with the animators.
There is a lot of animation in this movie.
Yes.
It constantly, like, the scene will be playing and animation will run over top of it, like non sequitur, like all these extra additional animations, which I thought was like really fun and inventive, but did like I think belie some problems with the movie.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, there was definitely some kind of racist imagery as well. So,
yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting about that because he was someone who he was born Jewish in Palestine, now modern day Israel, and his family immigrated to the United, and he lived in a very kind of integrated and diverse neighborhoods. And he was very inspired by that work. And I think in a lot of his films, some of those earlier films, he very much like uses the stereotypical imagery to play in and comment on. And it's probably he's a Jewish guy, he's not black, so it is like complicated. But man, one thing you look at his films, like he hates cops. It's just like I know in Fritz the Cat, the cops are all played by pigs in it. I mean, this is the most like knock you over the head kind of analogy. But yeah, he just has a disdain for power structures and very, very kind of lefty.
I won't lie that I did. I mean, I will admit I enjoyed the scene where the cops were getting urinated on by one of the members of Holly's
entourage.
Yes.
Voyeurs. Yeah, whatever's going on with that. Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes it's like this is a studio film, and it's crazy to see this stuff in the film at all. I'm just like, wow, they wouldn't nowadays. You'd be like, everything's got to be buttoned up. We can't offend anybody because we want as many people to watch the film. And he's just like, on the sides and the periphery and all that. That's what's going on in the film.
So it does have that interesting animation, and then another really positive thing I find that I can take from the film is the incredible soundtrack. It had like the first original Bowie song in 3 years. It had a Thompson Twins. It had some like early Moby. It's kind of crazy that I think there was a Thrill Kill Cult. I think was one of the other bands that was on the soundtrack. I mean, it's the mix between like the sort of like EDM music and then the sort of like almost 40s score at times is really, I don't know. I enjoyed that aspect of the film.
Yeah, I got really fascinated by that Bowie track at the end of it, and I had not realized like that was a very complicated time in David Bowie's career, where he was sort of like out of recording for a long time, and he comes back with his I forget which producer he like reconnected with to come back for the song "Cool World" from the movie Cool World, and then it was even on I forget which album. Oh, I can't remember the title of the album that came out in the late '90s, but it was even like the unlisted bonus track on that album. So you'd buy that CD and you'd listen to the album, and then Cool World from the movie Cool World would come on. Just like I was like, oh yeah, man, what a like interesting moment in David Bowie's career. If that's all this movie was, is like a footnote to David Bowie's recording history. It was interesting for that reason.
Absolutely.
I did remember recently seeing Dave Grohl like in a video describing a story of trying to collaborate with David Bowie on a song for a Marvel movie, and David Bowie replying and saying, "That's not really my kind of movie. I don't want to." But then I just held that story in my mind very recently, and I was like, "But you did Cool World? maybe you learned a valuable lesson."
I mean, but perhaps he was maybe when he agreed to do this song, he was thinking of the other work. That that and what is the? I always mispronounce it. It's Bakshi or
Bashi. I'm probably mispronouncing it. It's one of those things like I would watch his movie.
Bakshi because it's B-A-K-S-H-I.
Yeah,
So is it
Bakshi.
I've always said Bashki my entire life,
Bashki,
but I
Bashki,
am
let's
saying
go.
it wrong.
Oh, goodness. Well, yeah, I think maybe because it did have Bakshi there, and like he did have all of those, early underground sort of, and he always did interesting things with animation. That's probably like why Bowie was like, oh, this guy.
He's
guy's
an
cool.
outsider.
I'll work with him. I don't know.
Here, I'll start writing the song. Cool World. All right. These are the words. Cool World.
It's definitely a title that you really can't live up to. You don't want to call it that because you're like, well, I find this to be not such a cool world.
I've looking at this movie, like finally sitting down and going through it. The one thing I really struggled was I found the story like borderline unintelligible. And I kept like marveling at it, like wondering like why, like 'cause I can describe what happens in this movie, but I can't describe the amount of work I had to do to intuit that that's what the story is about.
There's so many plot holes.
Yeah.
So many things that they'll just kind of pull out of nowhere and then just not explain.
And things just occur in the movie. I think most like sort of like to the point of that is the end of the film is Brad Pitt dies in the real world and then he goes back to Cool World. But because Kim Basinger was a cartoon when she killed him,
when she put the ground killed him, so when she pushed him off,
she becomes his murderer. And because she was a cartoon, if a cartoon kills a human and the human comes to Cool World, they become a cartoon, which is so many levels and layers of complicated that you would think it was the point of the movie. But no, it's just something somebody says at the end, like, he's coming back to life. Why? Well, don't you know that when a cartoon kills a human, they come back to life as a cartoon? No one knew that.
Such an afterthought, but at least he can finally get laid.
Yeah. Well, no, can they? Because I thought that was the big thing with the cartoons is they can't. They were so curious about it.
I think they could, but I don't think they could. Like they derive satisfaction from it.
Feel the same.
That's the way kind of Holly described it.
The cartoons are all hung up on that sex is different for humans.
Yeah.
And that's the number one reason to go to human world.
Like she said, like she couldn't taste like a human tastes, things like that, and feel like a human feels. So it's, I don't know. It was just really odd.
Yeah, but I felt like the whole movie is full of things that were. It was like, this is what's happening. Why is that happening? Well, because this is what can happen. Like.
And like why? Like I don't understand things that got into that world. Like how is there a dress made out of real fabric? How is his car that the detective is driving around a car from the real world? Yet everything else is this sort of animated.
I do feel like that's a thing that happens in the middle of the movie where they just declare, "Oh no, we go back and forth between real world and cool world all the time. Everybody does."
Because initially it's this spike.
Yeah.
At the beginning there's this spike after he's out. He comes back from World War II. He has, he won this motorcycle in a
poker game in Italy.
A poker game in Italy, and he wants to take his mom out on a spin and show her a nice time, like a good little son. And that accident leads to, or that motorcycle ride leads to an accident in which his mother dies, and he, there's like this trauma that's reignited from his, his experience in war, and then all of a sudden he's in the he's in this. Not Toon World, Doodle World.
He's a Doodle World. They're doodles.
Yeah.
Doodles and noids.
Oh yeah, humanoids, the noids. I do like the language, that kind of language in the movie.
Also, the crash. He is the most reasonable motorcycle driver I've ever seen in cinematic history get hit by another car. He is like, my mom's here. I'm observing. I'm whatever the equivalent of 10 and 2 is on a motorcycle. He's doing that, and then they go flying. I just feel like there's a little sensitivity to like, this is what happens to people who ride motorcycles all the time. Is just random negligent people kill them. And I just my heart goes out to Frank. There's so many things that I feel very sympathetic to Frank, even though he's kind of a jerk. is that he lost his mom. He can't have sex. Oh, it's just awful.
If I read this, I believe in my heart, if someone showed me a screenplay for this movie and said, Ian, what do you think of it? I would say, okay, this Frank character, okay, this is what happens to him. He fights in World War II and he comes home and he and his mother is killed in a terrible accident and he is transformed to Cool World and he is so horrified by what he has seen in the 20th century. He says, the real world is a place of pain and death. They have a war there. It's like an idea that he has in his mind. I'm going to stay in Cool World. And then he becomes a gangster in Cool World and falls in love with a cartoon woman. I would say that's an entire movie. Like that is, and it is covered by basically a character stating it as plainly as that. Like it, you don't see it, you don't experience it. There's the motorcycle crash. He's in Cool World. You see him later, and he's a gangster, and he is in love with a cartoon character and says, I don't want to go back to the real world. Like, I was like, oh, why don't we like see scenes or moments or that transformation? Everything in this movie kind of happens off screen, and someone says, by the way, I feel this way about this now.
Well, this movie, when it was initially pitched, it was supposed to be about an underground cartoonist who goes into this world, falls in love with, well, I don't know if they necessarily fall in love, but he is intimate with a cartoon, and then they have a child that is half human, half cartoon. It was supposed to be a horror film.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm, yeah.
Yeah. So
You're describing a much cooler movie.
Yeah, I mean, the way he originally intended it was much more interesting than what we actually end up getting through all these rewrites. And Basinger wanted it to be a little more geared towards a younger audience as well. So, like, they had to, make some changes to accommodate her. I mean, even though it very much is not, despite having seen it at 13, I don't think it was necessarily appropriate for me at that age. But still,
it does feel like a movie that wants to be R-rated.
It really does. Like, there's so many times where it comes close to saying things that are risque, but then it just like peels it back and like they say doing it or making it. But then she calls everybody pencil dick. So it's it's such a, I don't know. It's all over the place.
That Gabriel Byrne character is another like thing about Act 1 that really bugs me in the movie is he is a prisoner who draws a very popular in our world comic book called Cool World. But then also Cool World is a really real place that is being created by his creation, and he like gets sucked into it by the power of what he's drawn. And that idea is so tersely covered. Like the idea that Cool World is a comic book in the real world, I had a hard time deciphering from like context. Like, oh, this is a very popular comic book in the story, but it's like almost like you can feel those rewrites where there's all these like vestigial ideas, like, or ideas that are referenced that like are clearly like from another draft that didn't make it into the final movie. And the whole movie does feel like a whole bunch of people were telling different stories and then they get kind of like piecemeal together. I think some movies kind of feel that way sometimes.
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
this is all over the place.
Wait, this movie about Frank, with this movie about Gabriel Byrne, like what if we just shuffled them together? Would it still make sense? Well, not really, but that's what we're making.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you have, if whoever is ostensibly the main character or the protagonist, there's like, we don't get introduced to Frank until we don't get used to Jack until later in the. I'm sorry, I'm getting Frank and Jack mixed up. There's
Frank is Brad Pitt. Jack is Gabriel Byrne.
Gabriel Byrne. So we don't get introduced to Jack until later, and then there's Frank is gone for a while, and then we don't see much of Hollywood, and so there's just a huge like editing and pacing problem from. Here's story A and here's story B of going back and forth, which is frustrating too. Meanwhile, much later, this is what's going on here.
Backstreet also intended like the cast to be much younger as well. Like he originally talked about having either Drew Barrymore or I want to say Juliette Lewis was also considered for like the daughter character that would be that half human, half toon hybrid. And then I think he also talked about like he wanted Brad Pitt all along. As like this sort of detective character. But then I was mistaken when I was saying that he was originally going to be the underground artist. He thought about having the underground comic artist be either, he was thinking about like Sean Penn or I think James Spader, which are also really, like, how much cooler would that movie have been with that banging soundtrack? I mean,
that would be a very 90s movie, but yeah.
Yeah, it just feels, to me, the movie felt like a collection of good ideas, but like, that don't at all line up, so you're just like constantly disoriented. I did like Brad Pitt. The issue of Brad Pitt is I had forgotten about 90s Brad Pitt. It just in my mind, like I feel like I've grown up alongside Brad Pitt. So like my concept of Brad Pitt is very modern. Like I think of Brad Pitt today, and then I pressed play on this movie and saw 90s Brad Pitt, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot. That's why he's the biggest movie star in the world. Because even in this movie that's confusing and convoluted and sometimes like even ugly to look at, there's Brad Pitt in the middle of it who is interesting and fascinating
and beautiful.
And yeah, and really like it like when he's on screen, I'm like, oh yeah, that he was a movie star.
Yeah, the only thing the only thing that threw me off is like I'm glad he doesn't talk out of the side of his mouth as much now. Like in that movie, like I felt like he was really talking out of the side of his mouth a lot more than he does nowadays, which I'm glad he kind of moved past that.
I was trying to think about when did I think Brad Pitt was a movie star? Like when in my life? And I think like by the time Fight Club came out, it was like cemented. Like this is a movie star's movie star. That was why Fight Club was so notable. And like Seven was like a big turn for him where I was like, but even before that, I knew Brad Pitt as a movie star. So I was looking at this movie and Thelma and Louise was like the year before this. And I was like, I knew the movie Thelma and Louise, but was vaguely aware that like Brad Pitt was in it. He made a movie right after that called Johnny Suede that I think was similar to Cool World and it was like unsuccessful. Cool World, I would think for a big, like a young movie star would be an alarming weekend in your life when that movie comes out. Like when the reviews come in, the box office returns come in. He was in the movie Contact that same year as Cool World, which was a very successful movie. I do not remember him in Contact.
Yeah, I love that movie, but
Contact,
I don't.
The Robert Zemeckis one? Or...
Oh, I might be thinking. Yeah, it might just be.
Oh, is it a different one? Because I'm thinking like the Jodie Foster vehicle. Yeah.
Okay, so I just don't even know that movie. Okay, but then the year after, A River Runs Through It, and I was like, oh, that was the moment when I was like, Brad Pitt is a major motion picture star. River Runs Through It was a huge movie with this big dramatic turn from this young actor where I started thinking of him as like, oh, this is a must-see performer. So this is really like proto Brad Pitt in my mind. Like he's just developing what is to be in the movies.
Yeah, I think the River Runs Through was directed by Robert Redford, and it was clearly kind of like he's like when he does kind of more historical films, it's just that like Golden Boy, and then Seven, it just like he has range, and he kind of that's the kind of Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
I was gonna say in the Robert Redford directed film, like I felt like it almost when he was in that, it felt like he was the next Robert Redford. Almost. Yeah, that's kind of like the vibes that.
Yeah. But looking back at Cool World, I was like, yeah, Brad Pitt was cool. Like he was neat and interesting.
Yeah. I do think it is funny that there's one point in the film where Jack tells Frank he isn't pretty because this was the time when like Brad Pitt was peak pretty.
Yeah.
Like he was just gorgeous back then. Not to say he hasn't aged well, but like he was very pretty. That was probably another reason I went to go see the movie. If I'm going to be honest,
he was probably even then. He was probably on at least in like what they used to have People magazine's Sexiest Man Alive. He was probably somewhere in the mix in the conversation. I'm pretty sure he won it at some year at some point.
Yeah,
but I mean, he's just he's got those Hollywood good looks, and
And similarly, I thought like in this movie, I thought Kim Basinger looked insane. Like, and I was just like, this is exactly what I would do if I were making a movie in 1996. They would be like, well, we need to sell tickets to a movie. I would say, well, let's get Kim Basinger and dress her insane. Like that'll sell some tickets. And I think you noted maybe in your notes that did Kim Basinger win the Razzie this year for?
She got nominated. Yeah.
I thought that was so unfair because like similar to like Brad Pitt's plight in this movie, it's not their fault. Their performances aren't their fault. They're delivering this mess of a movie. What's required of it? So I don't know. I had sympathy for Kim Basinger in this movie. Like she did her job. She looked like an insane cartoon brought to life, like truly unhinged in her performance. And I thought she did a good job of portraying Hollywood. It's not her fault. Hollywood is a bad performance. She was performing Hollywood.
I think it was really interesting and it is kind of like the transition from animated Hollywood to Kim Basinger live action is that she keeps the voice of Hollywood, which is this kind of baby talkish voice.
Yeah.
And then the outfit is this, they're just the way things are cut and where certain skin is exposed just shows you how absolutely absurd a lot of these like drawings or animations of
Yeah.
sexy women look when you actually put them on a real woman. I think there was the way the back was cut. It just looked weird, and like that is terrible. That looks terrible on an actual person. And I think that I can't help but think that that's not intentional by the costume design
Oh yeah,
department.
and it is like I think an example of like an idea that sounds good in this movie, which is like we'll dress her just like the insane cartoon we've drawn. You're like, that's hysterical, and then when it's in the movie, you're like, it just something isn't right about it.
Yeah, I think that's intentional.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it-
yeah.
It is kind of this conscious thing.
It's these intentional things that don't add up, is what I think of when I look at this movie.
I would also say like the cartoon version of her does look a little bit younger than the real life version of her. And I don't know if that's because of the initial thing where he wanted her to be a younger actress, or if that was just, I don't know.
Yeah, she's like, I think that she was in her mid 30s by this point. I mean,
I'd
she'd
say
had
late 30s actually.
Yeah, she had a whole modeling career, and then it kind of transitioned into acting. And she certainly was. It was the '80s, and she was certainly into doing kind of more risque films and films that had nudity and dealt with, just characters have sex on screen and things like that. She was in 9.5 Weeks and The Getaway with her husband at the time, Alec Baldwin. She was married to Alec Baldwin by this point. And she was someone, I think, in a lot of ways, that willingness to do those kind of roles kind of hurt her in perception, because I think she's really capable of giving a good performance. But I think there was not a lot of good roles for her over her life. I really find, I'm like, she was in Batman. That was Vicky Vale. That character is just annoying as all get up and useless. And it's like, I don't think anybody could have made magic with that character. But I'm also a little, she's from Georgia. You can tell she's got that Southern accent when she talks. I've always got a soft spot for Kim Basinger, and I always want her to do well, whatever she's doing. But yeah, this is just like an impossible task, like, and Hollywood is an evil character. I think she does all the, she takes advantage of a guy. She kind of assaults.
It's not the consent isn't entirely clear.
Yeah, he's kind of like no, and then she keeps going. It doesn't seem like he's opposed, but also he knows that's not good. And she's willing to destroy the world to get what she wants. Yeah, and she's very fairy tale like is punished by that. She's trapped in a comic, and she's got this. Gabriel Byrne's character becomes something between Superman and Mighty Mouse, and they're gonna live together and have kids. This is like the worst fate for this woman who wants to upend the world. She's like, okay, you get to be the housewife now with this grotesque guy that has a huge upper body and a very small lower body.
Perhaps now he does have a pencil dick.
Yeah. Yeah, and so that she's kind of this free woman getting what she wants, very femme fatale, but now she's stuck in a comic strip being a housewife. So yeah, there, take that, feminist reading. So
the visual look of this movie, I would just oscillate between I hate looking at this movie and this is fantastic to look at so much. I couldn't I think it's very unfair to compare this to like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which is an enduring classic, and the visuals in it make you believe in movie magic, with childlike wonder that the cartoons are real and they're interacting with the real people. I think this movie is, in some ways, is like more visually experimental than that, but none of it like lands with like the thud of Who Framed Roger Rabbit. But there are so many like visual ideas that I thought were so like I think when Gabriel Byrne first comes to Cool World, he like lands on the street. And he's in this set where there are buildings behind him in the foreground and like lampposts in front of him in the foreground, and they're all painted and designed to appear two-dimensional, but they are three-dimensional. And then he's three-dimensional, but then he's interacting with the two-dimensional characters, and it's so complicated and interesting to look at and so engaging. And this movie will change its visual style from like moment to moment, scene to scene, where sometimes it'll be like a real person in an entirely cartoon environment. Sometimes it'll be a set painted two-dimensional. Sometimes it'll just be three-dimensional with two-dimensional things in it. And I was just like, the visual style is so all over the place that in part it's engaging, but then sometimes it's just so visually confusing. You're like, I can't.
And then you get to the real world.
Yeah.
and it's nothing visually interesting about that. Especially like the way they did it. I can't remember the name of the artist that did the background painting for they like constructed these giant sets, and there was like they lit them so they looked more 3D, but they were actually all like the sets. The background was all 2D. But then there were like some 3D cutout pieces that they would use for like the street lamps and things like that. I don't know. Very visually interesting at times. But then when you get to the real world, it just kind of, I don't know. It completely, like, it was already off the rails. Then it just like goes down into the pits and just continues sinking, I think.
I thought the climax of this movie in the real world, when all the cartoons are unleashed, I thought it was cool to look at, but then I was looking at it and I was like, what a neat thing. And then I was like, oh, this is exactly Ghostbusters. Like, this is what happens at the end of it. The ghosts come out and they run all over real New York.
Yes.
And I was like, these are the exact same gags from Ghostbusters almost. And then I got so disconcerted by it. I was like, is this just shot for shot the end of Ghostbusters?
But then people are also changing into animated characters and that perhaps reflect their personalities or not. It's a real, like, my comments is like, this is Freudian Zig coming out. That they're little like characters that are like, they look sleazy, they become sleazy characters. There's the neighbor's daughter. She's little orphan Annie in the comic strips. But she's like blinking in and out of it. It is this kind of, it kind of in principle reminds me of the X-Men film, although it didn't happen in that, where the bad mutants wanted to make the mutant machine to make everybody into a mutant. That this is like, if I can't be human, no one will be human. And yeah.
But it seems initially like she wants to get the spike to turn herself entirely human, but then it becomes like, oh no, I'm just releasing all the tunes into this world. Like,
and it's all the bad tunes. Like they're like the dead tunes and the evil tunes are coming out. These are not the friendly tunes for the most part.
They're not the law-abiding tunes that knew their place and where they needed to stay.
Which I guess Frank is a law enforcement, but the only rule is literally like the rules of the Garden of Eden, like don't have sex with a Noid, or else it all falls apart. And that's a strain that you need law enforcement. You need like a law enforcement officer and his sidekick to do that. It just seems kind of, and I think too the kind of pulsing out. I think I remember it was this kind of animation. Moments in animation you see sometimes with like a door opens, like at the end there's like the end of like Snow White and other things where like a door opens and just animals keep coming out like it's a flood, and it is this almost like these like exaltations of biblical proportions, or like it's a volcano just spewing lava everywhere. So these kind of like excessive and exuberant discharges. I don't know how else to describe it. But it's something that is like a trademark in animation. If you see a fair amount of these kind of things, but then it's like super gross in this film.
I thought it was weird and interesting. I don't like. So he's in prison at the beginning.
Yeah.
He's in prison for killing his wife's lover, crime of passion. And then, he gets out of jail, and I guess, the first time, I don't know what he did in prison, but the first time outside of prison, he's getting back into the dating game, I guess. But his first venture back out with a woman is this, interaction that he has with Holly, which may or may not have been consensual. And this dude seems to have like either really bad, well, he obviously has bad taste in women, but he also has a really unfortunate sex life, it seems.
Yeah.
He he can't get it right. I mean, like, granted, on the other hand, Frank doesn't have a sex life at all, but at least he's not causing destruction that like Frank is with his intimacy. And I don't know. It felt like at one point that Frank was like the neighbor might have also been a love interest, and then there was the interaction with the comic book store clerk. His romantic life is kind of all over the place.
You have real women not throwing themselves, but that if you're open, you'd like to go out.
She wasn't bad looking.
No, these are lovely folks.
Yeah.
Now, okay, this was a thing that I did not understand about the end of this movie. But at the end of the movie, Gabriel Byrne's character, there's like a girlfriend who's like concerned about, like, she's like following the action and being like, don't die. I don't know who that is or where that came from, or
The neighbor?
was it just his neighbor?
It was the neighbor's daughter.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
The neighbor's
Yes,
daughter.
they're just
Jennifer.
people just get introduced to the movie,
Yeah.
and then you treat them as if they're like a character from Act One, where it's just like, now, I'm fully invested. The neighbor's daughter, like, I don't even recognize her as the same character from scene to scene.
She came over, like, they show her once when when he's moving in. She's like on the phone, and then they show her again whenever he comes back from Cool World, and there's like the flashing lights, and she's all concerned.
Yeah.
And she comes over and sees that he's with Holly, and she seems disappointed. So that's why I was like,
Yeah.
was she supposed to be a love interest at
Yeah.
one
Or was
point?
the
Yes.
or was the mom supposed to be? Because, and also, like, they just walk right into his door, so that they're friendly on a certain
Yeah.
level, or this is a nice, safe neighborhood in Las Vegas.
So many weird holes in the
Yeah,
plot.
yes, it is like a story that, as it goes along, it just feels like it's being made up on the spot, like so, like. And then, and then the neighbor comes over, and then she's in the entire third act, and we care about how she feels about the main characters, and she's given the dramatic weight of someone who's been in the entire movie, but she just appears all of a sudden. Why? Because we needed a figure to hang these emotions on.
She's got her mom's car, which will take them to the casino hotel where the spike is. So
The spike, which was in the first scene,
yeah,
and then unmentioned until the final half hour.
the forgotten MacGuffin.
She mentions it once when Frank comes to visit her, and he says that that's just a story that doodles tell their kids about that spike being at the top of the building. But that's the only time it's only mentioned once mid film, and then again at the end. It's just it's bad.
It's such I mean, the way the story is told is so strange to me, like, that I just can't understand, like, how anyone would tell a story this way. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
Too many cooks in the kitchen with this script.
And just one other thing, I think that really kind of thinking how like the early Vegas scenes, they seem very, they're shot outside, but they seem very stagey. There's a point where Frank's motorcycle gets hit, that there's a like a building that just says gambling across it. Like it's like, this is like kids doing production design on buildings and things like that. And I do find it interesting. I would find cinematically interesting is when they go back to it and there's still that neighborhood there, and then there's like Vegas of the early 90s. So this is like before the demos and these like really went fully corporate. So this is kind of a little bit of old Vegas. And one of the things where the Frank Sinatra Jr. shows up.
Yeah,
in this,
that's how you know it's older Vegas, because you got Frank Jr.
And in a very awkward and concerning dance musical number. There's just so much. It's like, it's one of these things like, this film is not sexy. This film is not beautiful. This film is weird and disconcerting throughout it. And I think it wants to be that way. It's not trying to comfort us. It's there to make us feel a little, because I mean we're talking about like interspecial romance, right? Between Noids and Doodles. This is some taboo stuff here. We're not supposed to have sex with animated characters.
Even though everybody wanted to have sex with Jessica Rabbit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I struggled with this movie, and I think just at a certain point after the middle, I just turned on it to where I was just like unable to absorb information from it. Like, so no matter what I was doing, I was just like, I don't understand you, movie, and I've given up on you. But I think there was one moment that I found truly it's one of my favorite things I've ever seen in my life is, for whatever reason, there's these characters and they're like hanging out on the side of the building. I think it's right around when Kim Basinger transforms and they fall off the skyscraper.
Oh, yeah.
They're falling, and the shot is looking up at the cartoon characters falling, and one of them opens his mouth, and the camera goes into his mouth, travels through his entire body, and comes out his butt. And I was like, that is I bought a ticket to see that. That was astounding.
And if you're paying attention, you can see Geppetto and Pinocchio inside his belly.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Oh, I missed
And
that.
those that's what I really want from a movie is just one incredible.
Yeah.
I can't believe I saw that. And I can imagine if I'd seen this movie in 1996, it would be the only thing
92.
I remember. 92. It would be the only thing I remembered about the movie, and to the point where I think I would divorce that image from the movie and then just wonder about where did I see that? Where was I know I saw the camera come out the cat's butt, but where was it? When was it? Did I dream it?
Yeah. There's a lot of, I mean, it's like this is the detritus. The Cool World is the detritus of animation. You have like dogs playing poker. You have Tex Avery dogs. You've got dancing hippos a la Fantasia. You've got kind of early cartoons that take inspiration from minstrel shows. There's Little Orphan Annie. This is like it is very postmodern in the sense that there's this jumble of the history of animation kind of crammed into. You got these sweet little bunnies that turn really mean at some points. It is just full of. I mean, when I watch, it's like this film is like some of this film, and its clutter and its mise en scène is a little like the special edition Mos Eisley sequence in Star Wars, where it's all jumbled and like stuff that it doesn't feel right. It feels like that for a whole film, just how jumbled everything is on screen, particularly in the animated world. Just things like happening all at once, and there's not a serious dramatic moment because there are like 3 or 4 animated characters like walking around or making weird sounds, and you're just like, wow, it's there's nothing quite like this. I don't know if it's good, but there's nothing quite like this.
Jillian, I forgot to ask you earlier. You saw this movie in 1992 as a first date. Did you return to it over the course of your life?
No.
It was just this one screening of it.
I saw it in person. Again, in 92, it may have been opening weekend. It may have been the second week. I think it was opening weekend. But I did not return to the film at all until this past week.
Oh,
when
wow.
I viewed it again. I mean, I remembered parts of it, upon rewatch. Nothing, but there wasn't a lot that I remembered from the initial viewing, other than my discomfort at some of the sexuality at the time. It was just, again, I was a 13-year-old girl, so it was. I was a goody two shoes, so it was a little unnerving for me at the time. But this time around, it was just like, I'm like, why was I even disturbed by any of this? It was pretty tame for the most part. I guess because of that PG rating.
I would argue that this movie is disturbing just because so much, like, you were so disoriented in the story. You're like, clearly articulate what's going on, so it feels like anything can happen.
It is a little unnerving in that respect. Absolutely. I mean, it just, so much of the animation at times is just so random and unexplained, and it's like things will just fly out in front of things, and it'll just be absolutely insane. And then like the cuts between scenes where they'll have like these sort of like extended animations that are extremely violent. And it seems like a lot of times they're trying to make these jokes about like, paying homage to cartoon history and doing different things, but they never really. A lot of times it doesn't feel like they land.
Yeah. They're just there to be like, oh, there's an illusion, there's a reference to this, and there's nothing that's like, how do you change that? How do you like re-envision it or mock it in a proper way?
It does feel like a movie with no rules, which sounds really cool and exciting. But then when I'm experiencing, I'm like, I would like some rules.
Structure, and narrative,
maybe
and
a through
storytelling.
theme would be nice.
A rule has to exist for there to be danger. Like when there are none, it's just anarchy.
And I think definitely Ralph Bakshi. I'm sorry. Narrative is not his strong suit as a filmmaker. He's a very vibey film. He everything. A lot of things are like a lot of his films, they work best as like there's little vignettes and little episodic things, where this doesn't really have a kind of nice little sustained episodic little things in pieces.
I will say that the only other Bakshi that I had really experienced prior to Cool World was I I'd seen parts of the Lord of the Rings cartoon
Yes.
when I was younger, and I was homesick from school one time, and it came on Nickelodeon, and it
Oh,
terrified
wow.
the crap out of
Oh,
me.
I remember being deeply scared of that movie when I was a kid.
I was where there's a whip, there's a way, or something like that.
Oh,
like
that's the Rankin Bass Return of the King.
Oh, was that Return of the King? Okay,
Yeah.
never mind. Then I'm confused, and that was terrifying as well.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, it's I don't know, just everything I remember about that animation style just scared me.
I found myself like really confused by the style animation of this movie, as I was like, I don't remember his films looking this way. And then I was watching it. This movie was streaming free on YouTube, whereas I was watching it, and then it also recommended me the movie Wizard or Wizards, I can't remember,
Oh.
Yeah.
and, which is I must have looked at this movie at some point in my life, but I couldn't clearly articulate anything about it. But I just like scrubbed through it just to see, like, I know this visual style, and I did discover that Wizard does look that way, and it has this tremendous like mishmash of cartoon
Yeah.
styles. It's just in my mind that one cool one from that movie of like the hooded figure on the big like tank-like creature is like so powerful. It's like I thought the movie looked like that when really it looks like this movie, which is everything everywhere all the time.
But I think this is Corliss's ugliest film, and I think he always like just is very into like mixed media and different styles of it, and just it's kind of like here's a sweet little elven creature, and then here's a sexy fairy, and then there's a monster with robot arms. That he just really likes to just very postmodern mix all this stuff in, and some of this I think is budgetary. But yeah, this is his ugliest film, and somebody who it is. There's a kind of beauty in the ugliness of a lot of his films, but this one is just ugly. I think this is one of the things I was kind of touched by. Obviously, there was Frank's character, who I'm glad his blue balls is over. This is the most blue balls film I've ever seen, or whatever the equivalent is.
That is a central core
Yeah.
philosophical thing about Cool World.
Yeah.
Except for when it gets rapey.
Yeah. But yeah, all the anime, they're just like wanting to see this interaction, and they all seem like much more relaxed afterwards. And it's just wow, there's just so much to know. But I think about the red phone, and for some reason, I'm just touched by the pain. The red phone, when it rings, the phone is clearly in a lot of pain. And he's please someone pick up me so I don't have to ring in pain and horror every time. And I just thought it's a little detail. I'm like, oh, phones have it tough.
Well, before it even started ringing, he was like, "I'm just gonna end it all." Like,
Yeah.
he was suicidal.
This poor red phone has to like suffer. Oh. So I'm glad someone picked him up. So someone gave him a pick me up, and he felt purpose. So
I'll say one interesting thing I found out as I was, looking into the background of this film. I watched an interview with Ralph Bakshi, and he talks about how the film kind of came to be. How he says that he had wanted to get into studio making because he was friends with Scorsese, he was friends with Coppola, and he kind of wanted to get that big studio money. And he had heard that Frank Mancuso Jr. Had a falling out with Don Bluth. And he knew Mancuso was like sort of a vengeful guy. And so he took that as the opportunity to pitch his movie. And he had a feeling it was going to be a sure thing that he would say yes, because he wanted revenge against, that Mancuso wanted revenge against Bluth.
oh wow,
So little bit of interesting background.
that is going a decidedly different direction, artistically, philosophically, religiously. So much, yeah, and that Don Bluth style, which this was kind of the when this film came out, it's the end of Disney's dark age. But that 80s, there were Don Bluth's animation was very kind of became dominant as Disney was figuring things out before they're like, let's go back to fairy tales and make lots of money, which they did. I was. Bachi's a really fascinating person to interview. I guess sometimes he might be a little prone to like what he remembers exactly from his stories. So Like he'll say like we had 500 extras or we had 5,000 extras or something like that.
Oh, he couldn't remember the names of like half the people in it when he was in this interview I was watching. He couldn't remember Gabriel Byrne's name.
Yeah.
But he's also 80. He was 85 in the interview, so it's.
He's still very much alive. I follow him on a group on Facebook. He'll update periodically.
He lives in a town not far from where I used to live. He lives in Silver City, New Mexico.
Oh, cool.
Which is a great little town, very artistic. A lot of actually, I want to say Nichelle Nichols also lived there before she passed as well. And I've seen concerts there. I went to go see like Greg Brown at the Buckhorn Opera House and Saloon is the little venue they have in that town. It is absolutely fantastic, but. Sorry, I had to get a little New Mexico side in there.
It seems like a good place to retire. And it seems like every film he ever makes is a big battle with something. It's something about a lot of 70s filmmakers. I have to fight with everybody to get my vision out.
Let's get that indie underground attitude.
You're right, that is like, this is an embattled movie where you can feel like that 70s tone of like, I am bucking a system to the detriment of my film, even.
Yeah, and simply by the time the '90s came along, I wouldn't say they were directors that got coddled, but I think somebody like Quentin Tarantino, where they're like, okay, that he pretty much gets to make the films he wants. Paul Thomas Anderson, some of these like big name film directors. I think it's interesting that they value these 70s filmmakers like, I gotta fight with everybody all the time. They're like, yeah, okay. If it costs a lot of money, make sure it hits. But this kind of confrontational nature of, kind of filmmakers coming out of the 60s and into the 70s that he seemed to very much embody. And however you feel about it, he put out the movies mostly that he wanted to put out. And it seems kind of a shame that this was the film that kind of ended a lot of his like kind of major feature-length films, and it was just this inglorious mess. Good times. So I don't know if we've come to it, but any final thoughts?
I did write some little odd bits of trivia down about the film.
Inform us.
Just because that's when I was younger, I was sort of like the IMDb of my friend group. So it's like anytime I would notice like connections between actors and different things like that, or I always enjoyed that. The actor that voiced Nails, also, I remember him as Buster Bunny from Tiny Toons Adventures.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
Yeah. He did other voice acting. He also was like Spike in the original My Little Pony. I think he did Chicken Cow or whatever. There was some other animation that
Cat Dog?
No, it was like Chicken and Cow or something. I don't even know.
Were they like a hybrid species?
Yeah. It was similar to Cat Dog, I think. But he's a pretty known voice actor. He also voiced Roddy Rowdy Piper in like the 80s Hulk Hogan cartoon.
Oh, now I remember that one.
Yeah.
I'm maybe just realizing for the first time that those weren't the wrestlers' voices. I was duped.
I'm sorry.
None of them were.
And another thing, the comic book store clerk, that was Carol Burnett's daughter.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And then the girl that played the neighbor, Jennifer, played another character named Jennifer that same year in the film Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like one of my favorite Donald Sutherland roles was that Buffy the Vampire Slayer film.
Yeah, I always liked that Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie. I feel like it's forgotten about because the TV show was so successful.
Yeah, it's kind of sad. I mean, it was. Then again, there was also the lead actress from that kind of went.
Christy Swanson.
Yeah, a little on the crazy side too. So, but yeah, those are my little tidbits of trivia that I as I was combing through things that I came across. So. It was kind of weird there for a second because we were more excited to talk about Buffy the Vampire Slayer
that's a really good
than
show.
actually talking about Cool World. It's kind of a little sad commentary on the disconnected.
I feel like
storyline.
Everybody involved with this film, including Frank Sinatra Jr., did better things than this film. So I think everybody can hang their hat on okay, I've done something better than Cool.
Oh, there was even like the guy who was the valet when she
Mhm.
drops off the car. Like I recognize that guy.
Oh yeah, he's like
from other like he was on The Wire.
he's a character actor.
Yeah, he's one of those. He's
Yeah.
that guy,
Yeah.
and that's definitely probably one of the worst things he's done. I mean, I can't think of anybody where that was probably the highlight of their career.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like that would.
Guess it's on the resume. Yeah, but I think it seemed for the most part too that even though it bombed, most everybody was okay. They went on to do other films.
Oh, yeah.
Gabriel Byrne was in, things like Little Women and other films. And Kim Basinger seemed to do okay. But yeah, just killed the director. But I think he probably didn't want to do anything like that ever again.
There's got to be a sacrifice.
One little thing I want to add about Ralph Bakshi is that he did a Dr. Seuss adaptation of the Butter Battle book, which is about arms escalation, and it ends with nuclear weapons. It is a very grim Dr. Seuss book, and Dr. Seuss apparently was like, I don't like the way everybody adapts my books. They just don't want to add stuff and put their touch. And Ralph Bakshi was very wants to do his own thing. He's like, I got you. So he makes the most faithful version possible of a Dr. Seuss adaptation. So it's just however you feel about it. He's like, when he understands an artist wants something that's very faithful, he'll I'll give it to you.
Oh, I mean, I think he's outstanding. I just think he got the short end of the stick when it came to this whole process of working with the big studio.
Yeah. I don't know. It just seems why would he ever do this? I don't know. What the
Money?
equivalent. I mean, yeah, money. I just wonder what the equivalent of somebody that you would never think would, somebody that has indie cred would ever do a big studio picture. I don't know.
I mean, he was probably thinking of his family, and he just wanted to have a nice fat paycheck. I mean, really, I think it comes down. And when he originally sold the idea, I don't think he realized how much interference there would be from the producers. I mean, there was one rumor at one point that he punched Mancuso, but he said that never did happen. So, considering the changes that were made, that wouldn't surprise me that might have been an instinct at one point.
Yeah.
But I think. Largely, if the movie would have gone along with more of what he originally intended, it would have been much more interesting. Because, but at the end of the day, he always had some sort of social commentary, and there is just none here.
Yeah.
There's nothing. It's kind of vapid.
Don't have sex with different species. Yeah, it feels very. And this was kind of. There's this huge kind of oppressive morality to it where his other films don't have that. It's just no tune should have sex with noids, and this is bad, and stay in your lane, and the artistic, something gives you the art and you didn't create it yourself. It just feels very dour vision of art and life.
Yeah, and, one thing that kind of disturbed me watching this as well was his I know they're tunes. Doodles. But the violence that he has, when he pushes Holly,
Oh yeah.
some of the violence against. I mean, I know she's a doodle, but come on, don't hit women, don't push women. It's not.
Yeah, and he's
not
beating
cool.
Brad Pitt is beating up all sorts of animated characters, just viciously.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's just not a good guy. He's a police officer, so that's why Bakshi, you should not like this guy.
And how thick he lays it on the scenes with while he's still human and he's with his doodle girlfriend. How why should we even bother let's not get that he's
It's a love we can never have.
yeah, but he doesn't want to leave the world because of her. It's just so there's no connectivity.
What you have, literally, there's no connect. There's no way that they can connect in that most way. Yeah, but yeah, and I think there was one other little thing I thought was interesting was that when when Frank returns to the human world, he's still in the pain that he had, this physical state of falling off the motorcycle and seeing his mother die. So I thought that was vaguely interesting and cruel on part of this poor character. This is why I don't want to go back, because I'm reminded of this woman that I don't know what his notions of the afterlife are, but he's never going to see his mother again in whatever state or world that he exists in. So it's very sad.
Like the whole thing about the traveling back to the world thing, it's like he's pulled there by the spike, but then he can travel back by just remembering the moment that he left the world. It just...
No, I wrote that down, that in an hour and 15 minutes in this movie, Brad Pitt explains the concept of traveling to the real world and cool world, which is something that has been happening the entire movie. There's like no rules to it until there need to be, and then there are.
But then at one point, Holly's like, "Oh, it was just a mind slip." Like she had, like when she had brought Jack into the world. Like,
yeah. There's no like rhyme or reason to it. It's just this happened. Why did this happen? Oh, well, I can tell you. Like that's how everything happens in the movie.
So
It's very strange.
Yeah, I think it was what you noticed about like the Paula Abdul video Opposites Attract, which
That's what I kept looking at this movie and I kept thinking, this reminds me of something so much.
I remember that video.
And I kept thinking, like, it reminds me of a music video. And maybe I was just thinking of Opposites Attract, but I was thinking, was there like a 92 video that used this style? Or was there a music video? Maybe was there like a David Bowie music video with this I saw? But
because we used to have music videos, if you're of a certain age, they used to have music videos that would have clips of a movie and something else going on. And so it was like exciting, like you're watching like kind of a trailer for a movie while you watch this Guns N' Roses or this Billy Idol song or this Ray Parker Stevens song or whatever. But yeah, I don't remember anyone of that age. Yeah, this is a very limited, like, you don't really have like 2D animation and humans interact.
I do remember the Paula Abdul video. It came out in September of '89.
Oh my gosh.
And it featured her. They used rotoscoping for that as well.
MC Scat
and
Cat.
MC Scat Cat. I was going to say Paula Abdul and MC Scat Cat.
Not Will Smith, because it sounds a lot like Will Smith, but it's not Will Smith.
Yeah, I have fond memories of that video. I will admit that when I was younger, I was a bit of a Paula Abdul fan, and whenever her album after that came out with Rush, and Keanu Reeves was in that video. Oh,
I don't remember that at all.
It's like they do like a lot of shot for shot remake of
Rebel Without a
Cause. So she can play Natalie Wood, and Keanu plays James Dean.
Yeah,
and I love Keanu. He really acts. He acts all around Paula Abdul in that video. Even though we kind of think he's not. He's an actor of limited range, but you put him against Paula Abdul, and he's
got so much depth.
Mops the floor with her. So, Paula Abdul was a big deal in the late '80s, early '90s. She was.
Maybe America is ready once again for the human person cartoon love story.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like a flash, like a kind of flashback to a simpler time. I know they had a AI actress or whatever, Natalie something.
Tilly
Norwood, who's like, it's the most like, I know there's a lot of actresses out there that are very qualified to do that job. You don't need an AI. The pool is deep. The bench is deep in America with actresses. Don't need an AI, and just something a little throwback, maybe a little more tender drama about the impossibility of the relationship or something.
Or go with his original concept.
Yeah.
Like make that movie where there is this monstrous human human doodle hybrid that is hunting down her father that abandoned her. Yeah, I would watch.
Cool old remake.
I do remember one of the films that the film Coonskin. I know at one point the Wu-Tang Clan were interested in doing an update or a sequel to Coonskin because they really love that film. But that never happened. But I've always wanted like something with the Wu-Tang Clan, the Wu-Tang Clan in it, or because I believe they're on their last tour and they're retiring, and I would like to see the Wu-Tang Clan live on in animated form in some way. They're that fantastic.
They're forever.
Any last thoughts from you, Ian?
No, just like sometimes I fall in love with a troubled mess of a movie, but this is one I struggled through.
It's very ADHD addled. I don't know if it should encourage someone who has ADHD to watch, or it's a bad thing. But it's a lot. So anyway,
the movie's chaotic. The movie is a mess. do not judge me by the fact that I picked this film
Yeah.
as
Certainly.
as our viewing option for this week. Part of me, I did want to visit out of nostalgia, just because I have this memory associated with this. I will say that I broke up with that fella shortly after the film.
There was no second date.
There was no second date. I was a little too much of a goody two shoes for him, so things ended rather quickly afterwards.
I'm
Seems
sorry
like
for that.
Things have worked out for you. So
I'm okay. In the long run, I'm pretty sure I ended up with the better bargain. So.
well, wanted to thank you for coming and talking to us about this fascinating mess of a film. And again, for those listening and watching, please make sure to like and subscribe to HerdCon and share with your friends if you find our conversation amusing and informative. Thank you.
As part of HerdCon,
Oh, yes.
I would say I appreciate being invited on here. I've run the panels for HerdCon the past couple of years, so to have the opportunity to further plug HerdCon is always a plus.
Yeah, we'll make sure and put the link to HerdCon because that's coming up. When is HerdCon coming up this year?
Ooh, March, I think 2nd or 3rd. Ooh,
Okay.
I don't have it in front of me. I'm sorry.
We'll make sure and update that on our Spotify and our YouTube channel. So thank you very much.